In 2014, a 54-year-old epilepsy patient in a Washington, D.C. hospital lost consciousness the instant a research electrode touched a structure no wider than a matchstick. And neuroscientists still cannot explain why silencing one sliver of tissue can turn off a human being. Her name in the records is simply patient. She'd agreed to deep brain mapping before surgery, electrodes threaded into regions doctors rarely touch. One electrode sat against the claustrum, a thin sheet of neurons folded beneath the cortex, so thin some anatomists nearly missed it for a century. Dr. Mohamad Koubeisi's team wasn't looking for anything dramatic. They were locating seizure origins, testing tissue the way you tap a wall for a stud. Then they sent a small current through that one site. Mid-sentence, she stopped talking. Her eyes stayed open. She didn't fall, didn't seize, didn't blink out like a faint. She simply wasn't there anymore. Here is the first anomaly, and it's the one that should stop you. This wasn't sleep, and it wasn't a seizure. Her breathing continued. Her heart rate held steady. When the current stopped, she resumed the sentence she'd been speaking, as if no time had passed for her at all, though seconds had passed for everyone in the room. Doctors repeated the test on this patient and later on others. Same site, same result every time. A functioning brain, an active body, and no one home. Researchers had touched something that didn't dim awareness. It cut it cleanly like a switch. The obvious theory arrived fast. They'd found it. The seat of consciousness, the single structure that generates the felt sense of being you. Francis Crick spent his last years chasing that idea, publishing a 2005 paper with Christoph Koch naming the Claustrum their leading candidate, a conductor. They proposed binding sound, sight, and touch into one unified experience. It fit the data. It fit the anatomy, too. The Claustrum connects to nearly every region of the cortex, a hub wired to everywhere at once. For a moment it looked solved. Then the theory broke. Later case reports surfaced of patients with claustrum damage, strokes, tumors, one case of near-total claustrum loss who stayed fully conscious. Awake, aware, able to describe what happened to them. If the claustrum truly generated consciousness, destroying it should erase a person. It didn't. Stimulating it in that one patient shut her down. Removing it in others left them intact. Two roads to the same structure, two opposite outcomes. Something about that DC patient's case wasn't a universal rule. It was specific to her, to that electrode, to that exact site, and nobody has been able to say why. Here's the detail that still unravels every explanation on the table. In follow-up studies, researchers found the effect wasn't reliably reproducible even in the same patient at nearby sites, millimeters apart. Move the electrode slightly, and consciousness stayed on. The switch wasn't the whole claustrum. It was some impossibly narrow patch of it, on one side in one person, under one specific pattern of current. Some researchers now suspect they weren't disabling a consciousness center at all. They may have disrupted a fiber pathway passing through the claustrum, not the structure itself, meaning the very case that made the claustrum famous might have nothing to do with the claustrum. And if that's true, the search for what actually happened to her starts over, with the last 12 years of theory sitting on a foundation nobody's confirmed. Competing explanations keep collapsing under their own weight. Some argue it's a regional anesthesia-like effect, current spreading to suppress nearby thalamic relays, but imaging during the event showed activity patterns nothing like sedation. Others propose a seizure-adjacent state too subtle for the EEG to catch, but her brainwaves stayed clean throughout. A few have floated that the claustrum acts less like a switch and more like a valve for attention itself, and that shutting it doesn't erase consciousness so much as strand it somewhere the woman herself couldn't report from. Nobody has tested that. Nobody knows how they would. So a hospital room in 2014 produced a woman who went silent mid-sentence, resumed like no time passed, and gave researchers their strongest evidence yet for where consciousness might live, evidence that later cases immediately contradicted. The claustrum sits in your skull right now, thin as paper, wired to nearly every part of your cortex, and no one can tell you with certainty what happens if the wrong current finds it. If a millimeter of tissue can end you and bring you back without your knowledge, what else in there is switching on and off without your permission?